If you make good money but still feel like one surprise could knock you off track, this episode is your reset because optionality isn't a vibe, it's owned. Today, we're talking owning optionality, the simplest asset moves that increase choice without turning you into a finance hobbyist. We're going to be talking about cash reserves and building boring on purpose and index fund ownership. You can download the Optionality Asset Ladder on the website and find me on Instagram to see more in-depth content. Let's build choices you can feel. Yeah. What's happening, my optionality builders and high earners? We are building real wealth on purpose. Welcome back to another episode of the Do Different Better show, where we talk wealth wisdom and money moves, simple, strategic, and for grown folks only. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, CEO of Connective Institute and Do Different Better, and the managing director of the Integrated Capital Fund. Today's episode is super, super fun. It's called Owning Optionality, Simple Asset Moves That Increase Your Choice. And I'm starting with a line that might sting a little, but is true. If your lifestyle needs your paycheck to arrive on time, every time, your optionality is actually rented like the runway, meaning your freedom is dependent on your next deposit, your next client, your next check, your next bonus. And that's not a cash flow issue. It's a structure issue. Optionality is the ability to choose without panic, to say no without collapse, to pivot without debt, to take a breath and still be fine. And in this quarter, I've been talking a lot about optionality, which is the O in our SOUL framework, right? So stability, optionality, leverage, and empowerment. But today, I'm going to take it one step deeper because optionality isn't just cash. It's actually assets, because own assets create choices that aren't tied to your labor. Let's define what I mean by owning optionality. Owning optionality means that you have created a system where you have cash reserves that keep life from turning into debt unnecessarily or not on purpose. It turns investments that compound without you working overtime. It's an ownership mindset that shifts you from being a consumer to being an owner. It's the difference between I need this job to survive and I can make a move if I need to. I don't like this job. I don't like this city. I don't like where I'm at. And I have choices, right? It's the difference between I can afford to take a risk I can't afford to take a risk and I have a cushion and a plan, right? So this episode is intentionally very, very simple. And I hope that it resonates that way because people make wealth harder than it actually needs to be. Now, complexity is different than making it harder, right? Yes, as you become more wealthy, things get more complex. But if you are setting yourself up with some of these practices now, it makes it a lot easier for you to make decisions and make moves as your wealth begins to increase. For many high earners, the issue is not a lack of intelligence. It's not that you're not smart. It's that as you elevate and escalate and make more money, you have too many options. There's too much noise. There's not enough structure. And you have a lifestyle that eats into your margins that could actually be building assets. So today I'm going to focus on 3 engines of optionalities. Yes, there are many of them out there, but today I'm going to talk about 3. So 1, we're going to talk about cash reserves, your reserve stack. Remember, this is your baseline, your buffer, your brick house, and your flex fund. Number 2, I'm going to talk about index fund ownership. It's boring on purpose, but it's diversified ownership, right? Diversifying your portfolio. And 3, I'm going to talk about ownership mindset, how you shift from earning only to also owning, right? And possibly moving into owning full time, right? Because that also is an option. So now let's start with the reserve stack, because if you don't have a reserve, investing can feel like stress and, quite frankly, makes it almost impossible. So engine number one, the cash reserve. Cash reserves create optionality because they reduce the consequences of life, right? If you have a surprise expense and you have no reserves, you really only have three options. The first is panic, right? What am I going to do? How am I going to take care of this? And you might choose to get into debt, which is the second one, or you end up selling long-term assets at the wrong time. Maybe you're not going to get the full value of them, or as a result, you're going to have to pay taxes because you're going to be taking the money out of a vehicle that went in non-taxable but comes out, which means you're reducing about the amount of money you're going to get anyway. None of those are optionality. You might think that they're optionality, but they're actually not. Reserves are what allow you to handle surprises without getting into debt, right? Or at least purposeful debt. It allows you to invest consistently without stopping. It allows you to take a career or business pivot should you decide. And it also allows you to avoid being forced into bad decisions or decisions that are not necessarily where you want to go or what you want to do. Now, I'm going to have our framework that gives you this. That is the baseline buffer in Brickhouse. And in this optionality season, we added the flexed fund. So remember, baseline is your minimal viable month. Your buffer is your shock absorber. And your Brickhouse is your resilience. And then your flex fund is specifically for transitions and opportunities. Okay? These are the rungs on the ladder that keep you stable and also keep you mobile, being able to handle different situations. Now, the second engine is the index fund ownership. Again, super, super boring. I love that movie. What is it? The Hitman's Bodyguard. Boring is good. That's what we're trying to do here. Index funds are a simple way to own a slice of the market without having to feel like you've got to pick winners and worrying and betting on who's going to be the next stock of the day. And yes, it can feel very boring. And that's actually the point. These are the steady eddy funds that you can invest in, because high earners often get distracted by the next hot stock that's on Instagram or TikTok, crypto hype and complex strategies, or fear-based headlines, or people acting like you're behind unless you're making 42 moves every single week. But the people who build wealth sustainably usually do it through boring consistency. This is when they have a diversified investing. They have automatic contributions. They are looking at long-term horizons, and they're not panicking when the market moves. They're systematic. Index funds are ownership without the need to be a full-time market analyst. Now, let's get into the third engine, that is having an ownership mindset. And I would say that this is actually probably should be shifted to number one, because if you can't get into an ownership mindset or you don't have one, you really need to get that first before you do anything else. If you don't think that you are worthy, if you don't think that you deserve it, if you don't think that there's a possibility or there's an option there, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to get to the other two things that I talk about. The mind shift is what changes everything. I know for me, it changed how I saw everything. When I mean everything, I mean everything. Even in my relationship, how I was going to move in my relationships, right? And because once you build confidence or a mindset shift in one thing, it reaches everything. Now, most people live in a flow state or dream state, meaning that the paycheck comes in, the bills get paid, and the money goes out, and then it's wash, rinse, repeat. Owners build stock, and I don't mean stock in like stock and bonds. I mean stock is assets that accumulate and compound. right? Like think about a chicken stock, like you're making a big soup, right? And the stock is the base that all the other things that are going to go into a stew. Owning optionality is moving from how do I earn more money, right? And moving to how do I reduce my dependence? How do I reduce my dependence on this job? How do I reduce my dependence on this human, right? It could be a partner, right? How do I reduce my dependence on this partner? Dependence on one income stream, one employer, one client, one relationship, or one very fragile plan. Ownership is a stability and optionality strategy. Now, let's bring in the wealth identity lens because people sabotage these engines in very predictable ways. So let's talk about it. Builders. My builders, you tend to overcomplicate investing. You create a whole system and then you don't use it. Caretakers, you give away your margin and your reserves and you under-own because you're always rescuing other people. And you might even do that to your detriment, where you've even gone beyond your family support and you're now dipping into your baseline. For my maximizers, you continue to chase the best move and you don't let the thing that you've built actually get a chance to work. You often are getting whiplash and regret all at the same time. And you're checking all the time. You're not giving anything fully enough time to bake, right? So think about an underbaked cake because you kept opening the oven and the cake never set because you didn't let the actual oven, the heat, cook it all the way through. My minimalist strategist, you are avoiding the administration that is required to manage some of these things. You don't automate and then you miss out on compounding opportunities. Now I say all this because I want you to really think about this without judgment. This is not about judgment. This is about identifying what our patterns are and recognizing those so that we know where to actually think about how we want to make a shift, right? And so making sure that we understand how are we making decisions? And some of this is informed by childhood trauma, relationship trauma, things that we've learned, things that we haven't learned, bad habits of people that we know or bad habits of people that we've been in relationship with. Again, this is not about casting judgment. It's about stating what is so that we can build a framework and build forward. So I like to think about the way I talk about this is right now in your financial life, you are walking around in the room in the dark, and that room has a lot of furniture in it, and you just keep bumping into the furniture because you can't see it. What I'm asking you to do is not rearrange the furniture so that you stop bumping into it. All we're trying to do is identify a pattern, which is we're just turning on the light switch so you can see where the furniture is. And now you can create a path. Now, if you want to move the furniture after that, that's fine. But the whole idea, I'm not trying to rewire your brain. We're trying to based on how your brain is wired, how do we need to reframe how we have these conversations, right? So again, I don't want you to judge yourself. I don't want you to think about this is bad or not or good, right? Especially for my minimalist strategies. You might be thinking about casting a lot of judgment on yourself. This is just about if anything that I've said is landing with you, then that is a pattern that you want to keep in mind because the solutions that I'm going to bring to you are going to be correlated to your wealth identity. So now you'll know what exactly to listen for so that you can start from the best place and a place that's not necessarily grounded in building frustration and confusion, right? It's going to map to already how you're thinking about these. Now, coming up in the next part of the show, I'm going to talk about getting really tactical. I'm going to talk about how to build the reserve stack without getting overwhelmed. I'm going to talk about how to start index fund investing in a user-friendly way. And I'm going to talk about the rules that will keep you consistent. And then how we're going to end the show is I'm going to talk about the ownership mindset and building your 90-day plan. Because I'm not going to let you leave without having something tactical and practical that you can use today. So don't forget to check me out on Instagram at Do Better with Elaine. We're going to be back in just a couple of moments. You are listening to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. I will see you after the break. Welcome back to the Do Different Better Show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Today, we are talking about optionality and simple assets that you can move into that are just a baseline. There's lots of option out there, but we're going to create some real simple action for you, right? Just a simple baseline information. And really, the principle is really, really simple. Boring is a feature of consistency. Boring is a feature, consistency is the strategy. Okay. So while these may not be super exciting, you're not going to tell your friends that you made 20% or you made a 20x return on your investment. These are the things that you're going to start with so you can really start to build a really good base that's diversified than just having your cash on hand and having your paycheck go in and go out. So right now I'm going to talk about building two important things. One is your reserve stack, and two is your index investing plan. So here's the reserve stack in order and why. So step number one, you've got to know what your baseline is. If you don't know what your baseline is, I want you to bookmark this episode, go back to that episode at the beginning of the year, and figure out what your baseline is. Because if you don't know that, the rest of this is going to be gobbledygook for you. Okay. You've got to know what your baseline is. That is your minimal viable monthly expenses, not all the wants that you have, but the needs that you have. If you don't know the number, you can't build reserves with precision. Your baseline includes your housing, your utilities, your food, your transportation, your insurance, your minimum debt payments if you have any. Maybe it's a car payment. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you've got another obligation, whatever that may be. You need to write that number down. This is financial clarity, not punishment or judgment. Again, we're just flicking the lights on so we know where everything is. Step number two. We're going to start with building buffer number one. Buffer number one is your starter pack, right? It's your starter shock absorber to your life. This is $500 to $1,000 or 1 month of critical bills. So just think about that. If you saved $100 a week for 5 weeks, you're already at $500. It's that simple. And then it just begins to multiply from there. You put that money in a high yield savings account. Now you're building interest on that money, but building that reserve. Now, obviously, if you're on the lower end, maybe you're on the $25. But as I've shared with you multiple times over this series, I started as a single mom. I was making $12 to $15 an hour. I was working at a university as a coordinator when I was a single mom. And I was just desperate. I was just in this place of desperation. And I said, I've got to do something. Something's not working. I can't keep doing what I'm doing. And I kept telling myself, there's no way that I could save $25 a week. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. So I started with $5 a week. $5 a week. I knew I was getting a coffee at least once a week. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sacrifice this coffee and I'm going to invest it in myself. So I took $5 a week. And a strange thing happened. I'm like, oh, that $5 that I didn't think that I could save, I saved. And then I was like, oh, that's not such a big deal. I'm actually not missing that from my paycheck. So then when I got to that realization, I turned it up to $10. And then when $10 started feeling like not that big of a deal, I moved up to $15. So you can start with $1. But my hope and my wish for you is that you just start. All of this is the money that prevents any surprise from becoming a huge financial crisis or debt. Step number 3, this is where we start to build buffer number 2. Buffer number 2 is 1 to 2 months of baseline. And this is where your nervous system starts to calm down. And I know this firsthand. Once I got that reserve, I started building that reserve of building up $5 and $10 and $20 and $30 every week. I realized I was checking my bank account with the online app multiple times a day. multiple times a day. And if you know anything about how cash management for a bank, things don't back then, they didn't automatically update on the same day. You had to wait till the end of the day to see all your transactions from that day or the day before. But I was still checking it multiple times a day. Now you can see the transactions almost in real time. But back then, 20 years ago, you couldn't see the transactions in real time. But I was literally checking my bank account hourly. And so, I was freaking out all the time. I was in this constant like fight or flight mode with my brain because but once I got to that level where I started to see, I have this buffer filled up. I've got this buffer and I could look at that increasing like every week. My nervous system, as far as money goes, and my future and my security started to calm down. And it was such a relief. It was such a good feeling. Step number 4, build your brick house. Your brick house is typically 3 to 6 months of baseline. So sometimes more for variable income, or if you know that you have an unexpected caretaking expense that's coming up, or for volatility. But the brick house is what turns disaster into just a little disruption, a speed bump, right? Step number 5, adding a flex fund. Your flex fund is your optionality cash that you can use for a transition or other opportunities. Maybe you're looking to buy a business. Well, you may not have that business identified. You can start building the flex fund. So when you get ready for that deposit or that down payment for that, or earnest money for that particular business, you have it, right? You're not trying to figure out where it's going to come from out of your current paycheck. It's separate from your emergency money. This isn't emergency money. These are opportunity funds. It's how you say yes to a pivot without panicking. Now, here's the key decision rule for cash. If you need the money within 36 months, it stays in a vehicle that's liquid. Maybe that's a high yield savings account. Maybe that's a money market account, but it's a CD, a short-term CD, a certificate of deposit, but you want to be able to access the money quickly. If you need it soon, don't invest it in volatile assets like the stock market and then act shocked when the market starts to move and now you're like panicking because the market took a dip and you're like, but I can't afford to lose that money. That's actually not optionality. That's gambling with your timeline and your finances. Now, once your buffer is in place, you can invest with more confidence because you won't be forced to sell at the wrong time or a bad time. Now, the second part of this is index funds, simple investing. Index fund investing is a set and sustain approach. Set it and forget it. But what it also does, it's diversified, it's low cost, it's consistent contributions, and it has a long time horizon. This is personal finance for high earners done correctly. It's simple, it's repeatable, it's effective. Now, you might be asking, okay, I'm on board, but where to invest in first? Here's a general order, but again, talk to an advisor, talk to your financial planner, talk to an expert about what's going to work for you based on where you are. So one way could be investing in your own retirement account match, if you have one. If you don't have a retirement matching fund with your employer, starting your own. There are many online providers now that you can go to if your place of employment doesn't offer retirement planning or retirement account, I should say. Number 2, once you've established that, or if you're already putting it in, you're maxing out on the match that they're providing, your employer is providing, increase the retirement contributions. So maybe you're taking 5% of your check because your company is matching 5%. Think about increasing that. Number 3, then put it into a taxable brokerage account that is medium term or it offers additional investing. I have one of those accounts. It's through an online service, but your financial institution might have that available. Or if you're working with a financial planner or a wealth advisor, they may have some products or services that they offer. But the key is not the perfect order. It's building a habit, right? That is what we're trying to do, not necessarily the specific things that I'm talking about. Now, here are the rules that keep index investing from turning into anxious investing. Rule number 1, automation. Automatic contributions beat motivation. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel highly motivated. Sometimes I don't feel highly motivated. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to think about this right now. This is your opportunity to set it and let it run by creating automatic contributions. I have mine set up, right? Number 2, a rule of cadence. This is where you sit down and review monthly or quarterly, not daily. I will admit this is something I also need to get better at, of doing this on the regular, just putting it on the calendar, sitting down and just reviewing the information. The daily checking turns investing into a stressful hobby. You just want to check in, take a temperature check, see what's going on. How's the wind blowing, right? Rule number 3. This is the new money first. If you want to invest more or add contributions, do not sell your core holdings to chase something new. That's how people sabotage themselves. And you're not going to do that. No. Rule number 4, the 24-hour rule. You've heard me apply the 24-hour rule to a variety of things, but it's actually really, really beneficial. If you feel urgency in anything, especially in investing to buy or sell, wait 24 hours. It's amazing what can happen in 24 hours. 1, physiologically, you shift in 24 hours. The dopamine, the adrenaline, all of those things naturally wane over a 24-hour period, right? Your fight or flight mode wanes over the 24-hour period. Doesn't necessarily mean that it goes away. That's not what I'm saying. You may still wake up in the morning with anxiety, right? But I'm going to guess that your anxiety is less than it was at the time of the incident. But urgency is usually anxiety that doesn't have any insight. Now, what does ownership mindset look like from a very practical perspective? Here are examples of what it looks like. It's that you stop trying to time the market, right? You're focused on building the asset base and not just chasing the next thing. It's about using boring vehicles consistently that then compound over time. And then it's also about protecting your reserves and avoiding lifestyle creep. And I'm going to say something super, super blunt. A lot of high earners can invest. They just can't keep their fixed costs low enough to have extra margin for them to take advantage of opportunities. So optionality isn't only about picking investments or even making investments. It's also about preserving the margin that you have so you can consistently buy assets, whatever those assets are, including insurance. Now, coming up in the last part of the show, I'm going to be talking about the mindset shift. And I saved this for last because I can tell you all these things, but none of it really matters if you don't shift your mindset, if you don't think that you deserve it, if you don't think that you can do it, if you don't want to do it. Those are all mind shift things. And everything that I've told you so far won't mean anything unless you shift your mindset. And part of that is having a plan to be able to start to make the shift, but also having different conversations with yourself. It may also require you to have different conversations with different people around you. You might need to move yourself into places and spaces to help your mind shift happen all along the way. Because sometimes we need a little push. Sometimes we can't get there on our own. So maybe it's a matter of getting into different rooms and having different conversations with different people who are also either one, have had a mindset shift, or are wanting to also change their mindset. But this is how you start to build your reserve. This is about automating your investing, and it's about one ownership move that can increase your life choices and optionality, right? So we're kind of landing into the next zone here. We're wrapping up this particular segment talking about the different options that you can do that are simple, they're safe. Now, if you want to have a conversation with me, check me out. You can go and sign up for my newsletter. You can also send me a comment on the website at www.dodifferentbetter. I'd love to hear from all of you. Tell me what's going on. But for right now, you're listening to the Do Different Better show, and I will see you after the break. Welcome back to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. And today we're talking about optionality through assets. Really safe, simple, low-hanging fruit assets that you can begin your optionality journey. But we also talked about you've got to have your bases covered. So you really, before you do anything, you've got to make sure that your baseline is covered, you've got your buffer that's covered, and you've got your emergency fund covered. And now if you've done all that, now you're ready to move into the next level of optionality. And so we've been talking about in the previous segment about moving into, so really having a mindset shift. So here's the reframe that I want you to consider. Earning is important, but ownership is durable. Your income can stop, but assets can still work. And owning optionality is how you reduce your dependence and increase your choices, right? And that's super, super important when you think about not wanting to be stuck to a job, not being in the proverbial golden handcuffs of your job. The ownership mindset is asking a very different set of questions. It's asking, what can I own that makes my life less fragile? Not, what can I buy that makes my life look successful? Owners or owner mindset prioritizes having reserves. It prioritizes boring investing. It prioritizes reducing obligations or having obligations that have a return on investment of some type, building assets steadily, and protecting your optionality. And let me go back to that last one. So I've got a good friend of mine, Luana. She's been on the show. She's the CEO of NextFem Financial. She talks about every dollar that she spends is making money. And so what she means by that is, even though she might be buying something, she's putting it on a card that has points. She's putting it on a card that has rewards. She's putting it on a card that has cash back. So even though she's spending money, she's getting money back, right? So while her credit card is a debt instrument, right? It's a debt vehicle. She's still benefiting from that debt. So these are the things when you move to an owner mindset shift, you don't just think that a credit card is debt and that it's bad, but how can I leverage this in some kind of way? Or I'm leveraging debt for a reason. I'm leveraging debt to buy a business that's now going to pay me $5,000, $2,000, $10,000 every single month. But my payment for that loan is only $4,000 a month. This is what we're talking about. Now, I want to give you a 90-day plan that's realistic. And this is my 90-day optionality plan. And this is about making 3 key moves. Move number 1, we're going to focus on strengthening our reserves. If you don't know your baseline, calculate it this week. If you're sitting at home and listening to this, calculate it right now. There's no better time than the present. If your buffer number 1 isn't funded, I want you to automate $25 to $100 a week until it is funded. Remember that fund number 1 is about $500 to $1,000, or it's 1 month of baseline expenses. If your buffer is already funded, but your brick house is thin, increase your transfer by 1% to 2% of your income, whatever that is, right? If you're making $1,000, it's $100. If you're making $10,000, it's $1,000. Okay. And so on and so on. The goal here is to create safety and stop using debt for normal life expenses. That's not the goal. Move number 2, start or increase your automated index investing. If you're not investing, start with a small automatic amount. If you are investing, increase that by 1% to 2% or a fixed amount based on your income. Next, set a review cadence. I want you to set a monthly cadence and a quarterly cadence. This is going to help with your panic checking, right? Remember I told you about how I used to check my bank account all day, every day. And once I started to build up the reserves, I felt this wave of relief that then I didn't feel so compelled to go and check my bank account. And maybe that requires you removing the app from your phone. So that might be a thing. And so you're only accessing it on your laptop. And if you work for certain organizations, you can't access it at work anyway. So once again, if you are still finding yourself, you're doing all of these things and you're still panic checking, that's something else that you might want to talk to somebody about. But you can put things in your way that will help you to stop doing that. So again, removing the app from your phone. If you are setting up, if there's a firewall at work that doesn't let you look at outside sites, at least you're minimizing the number, which is now going to help your nervous system to start to calm down. Because part of that is the stress loop. And I did a whole show on the money stress loop. We want to reduce that loop, but sometimes we've got to put things in our way. We've got to put obstacles in our way to help our bodies and help our minds to be able to get past that money stress loop. Now, the goal here with setting a review cadence is that we allow compounding to begin and we allow the mechanism for consistency to show itself. Now, move number 3. I want you to make one ownership move. Choose one move that increases your choices. So here are some examples. You could increase your retirement contribution by 1 to 2%. Again, if you're putting in 5% now and your company is matching at 5%, maybe you boost it by one additional percent of your income, right? Marginal, maybe it's a 0.5%. If you're really concerned and you're scared, like, ooh, I don't think I can do 1% start with 0.25%. It may not be worthwhile, but if you're feeling like your nervous system can't handle going all the way up to 1%, start somewhere. Start at 0.5% and then move it. Now, the thing you want to keep in mind is you may be able to only do this a couple of times in the year. So you want to get in contact with your HR department and find out, like, how often can I change my contributions? If they say like anytime, I would not do this like every month. Maybe do it every quarter. Say, hey, I'm going to increase this by 0.25% every quarter until I get to 1% at the end of the year, right? That's also doable. Break this down. Don't let the anxiety, don't let the heart palpitations take over. Another option is to open a brokerage account and set an auto invest number. Another option is to pay down one high interest debt. This is reducing your obligation load, right? Your baseline expenses. You can also build a flex fund to 1 month of baseline, right? And remember, your flex fund is for your transitions and you're taking advantage of options. Or the last thing you can do is negotiate down a fixed cost and redirect savings to assets. Another good way to do this is calling all of your utilities, like particularly the cable company, and seeing if you can get some of that reduced. Call the phone company, your cell phone company, call your cable company, and see if you can get a reduction, right? Say, hey, I'm a long time customer. I'm thinking of changing my service and I want to move. I'm thinking of changing my service. Are you willing to do anything about my rate? And so you never know, even if it's $25. Now take that $25, which is a monthly expense, right? 25 times 12 months. That can go into your buffer fund. It can go into your baseline fund. It can go into your flex fund, right? This is how we're creating optionality. Here's the ownership move. The ownership move is any action that increases your margin and turns it into stock, meaning like not stock, actual investing stock, but like stock as in excess. That's what we want to do. Now, let's add the anti-sabotage rules because people rebuild fragility through bad habits. Okay? My anti-sabotage decision rules are no new fixed costs based on one good month. If you had a good month, you had a bonus, you had some, extra hours, you had any kind of one-time income. And even when I say one-time income, maybe it's a couple times a year, maybe you get a bonus every 6 months, or you get a performance merit increase every 6 months. Okay, that's not an opportunity to now increase your lifestyle, right? Not if we're taking an ownership mindset. It isn't, right? You can do that. You have free will. But if you're also trying to build a wealth journey that is calming your nervous system, if you're trying to build a wealth journey that creates optionality, if you're trying to build a wealth journey that's going to purchase that home or purchase that business, That's not the way to do it. Another rule is one in, one out. So if you're not taking on a new payment unless you remove a payment, and ideally of the same amount or lesser amount. That's what we want to do. If you're feeling FOMO or fear of missing out, then wait 24 hours. Say, if I'm anxious, I'm going to return to the plan and not to the interwebs. Okay. Another rule is if money is needed within 36 months, keep it liquid, keep it accessible, keep it in a money market account that is still building interest, or a high yield savings account, or a CD. And maybe it's a 6-month CD that you renew every 6 months. If you think you're going to need the money, you're just not exactly sure when, but you know that it's longer than 6 months, right? These real rules will protect your optionality because they reduce the impact of your decisions sabotaging your goals and your financial optionality. Now, let's tie this back into the bigger arc of our conversation, which is all about optionality. Optionality is built with reserves that prevent panic. It is built with simple investments that compound over time. It's built and having a mindset that prioritizes ownership over appearances. I remember when I was younger and I used to work at Nordstrom, and I worked in the handbag department. And at the time, this was the 90s. And so we had handbags that were very inexpensive, and we had a lot of handbags that were expensive. When I say expensive, these are like 300, 400, all the way up to thousands of dollars of bag. We carried Judith Lieber bags, which are beautiful stoned bags. But I remember noticing that the people who would come in to purchase very expensive bags, like when I'm talking Ferragamo, I'm talking about Fendi, that was very on trend at the time. And these bags were minimum $800-900. And when they came in, they weren't very ostentatious. They were not very showy. I remember this one woman, and this is probably the first time that I noticed this. She was looking at a Ferragamo bag. This bag was like about $1,200. And she was literally wearing white jeans with Keds. Very, very nondescript woman. And she was looking at buying this $1,200 bag. She ended up buying a couple of bags for me, and the total bill was probably about $3,000. And it was clear that she was not purchasing these to look like she could afford these things. She just came in she was very kind. And what I found was like, my experience with people with new money were so rude and so inconsiderate. But the people who had money for a while, who had an ownership mindset, she was making an investment. These purses, well, yes, she was going to use them and they were going to be lovely. She also was investing that she knew she was going to have these for a very long time. And that just shifted my mind. And so I remember I still have some of the Ferragamo bags that I purchased back in the 90s. And they still look great. They still look amazing, but they were an investment that I made. And I'm so happy that I did. I still own them. They still look gorgeous, but I'm not carrying them as a status symbol. I'm carrying them because I love the bag. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And I get lovely compliments when I wear it out. But I digress. So after you've done all that, here is your next step. I want you to download the Optionality Asset Ladder from the website. This is your one-page roadmap that's going to show you what to build and where your money should live and how you might want to think about rearranging how you're doing. And if you have no structure right now, this is an opportunity to build the structure, right? So I've talked about, hey, these are the different kinds of bank accounts. You can set up your Buffer One, your Flex Fund, and your Brick House accounts, even with your same banking institution, by having separate accounts. And you can have everything flow into one bank account and then leave to go to these other bank accounts automatically. I highly, highly, highly recommend you do that. And you can do it all online. I know some of you have social anxiety. You don't want to necessarily go to the bank. Many financial institution platforms allow you to set up different accounts and then automatically transfer on a regular basis to these other accounts. And many of them will allow you to name the account so you can keep the psychological clarity of what you're trying to do. Name it the buffer one account, buffer 1 and 2. You can name it your flex fund. You can name it, name it your options account. Whatever you want to do, you can use these names that I've given you. You can use different names if you want to. That's not the point. The point is that you're moving into, you can support your financial future, right? And you're not making decisions from panic. You're building up a reserve. You're then having the money to be able to start your investment journey. Even if that investment is in yourself, in your retirement planning, this is creating a mechanism by which you can support that, right? If you do nothing else, that is a great place to start. Don't feel that you're behind. Feel like this is your time to get on board. Now, after you've done all that, you can check me out on Instagram, where I talk. I'm going to be having interviews with people and talking with folks about what their experience is. If you want to do a live with me and you want to talk about what your experience has been from doing some of the things that we've talked about, please, please, please let me know. I want to know what's happening with your reserve stacking and what was setting up your index fund like for you, step by step. Now, remember, we're doing all of this because optionality isn't just a vibe. It's just not a feel good. It's something that you own and you take personally and you take accountability for. And this is how we're going to turn your income into optionality and begin to do different better. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to the show today. If this show has helped you, please share it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and send me a comment, send me a DM. I'd love to hear from all of you. And don't forget, we're going to be at Pride on Sunday. So I'm hoping that I get to see you live. Come out, have a good time. Tell me what's working for you. Tell me what you want me to talk about. Tell me how this has helped a friend of yours. But make sure you like and you share and subscribe. And I can't wait to see you next week on the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. I'll see you soon.